Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
And now we actually have a Louisiana State Democrat, Barbara Norton, coming out saying that she doesn't want kids as grades 4, 5, and 6 to learn the Declaration of Independence because she says it's racist. It was written in a time when people had slaves, so no, not all men are created equal. And as many people have pointed out, no, it was not perfect back then. People did have slaves. However, this document was a means to encourage humanity toward a certain ideal, which of course I think we've done a very good job in the present day, but people don't want to look at that. They don't want to recognize how far we've come. They just want to say it was racist and forget about the fact that this is the greatest country ever, thanks to what the founding fathers put in place. They want to destroy that and completely make people, especially young people, not understand their history. So, you know, this is the freedom of speech that makes the United States great. So we have to start asking, who is it that gets to decide what people are allowed to say? We have some young activists really coming out and trying to be the new rulers of everything. So this is a pretty influential group. We have the National Union of Students, and it's a Black Students Conference. There was a young woman just elected to be the Black Students Officer, Malia Buwadia. She was elected president of the union. And here's what she is proposing. She wants to abolish all prisons because they are racist and sexist. And this is, of course, pointing to the high rates of reoffending and disproportionate number of Black people in jail. She concludes, prisons are sexist and racist. Now, this is the same person who has also previously argued that it is Islamophobic to oppose ISIS. And she even described one university as a Zionist outpost because it has a large Jewish society. So you're not allowed to exist if you're Jewish, but if you like ISIS, that's totally fine. And so this is a girl that was just elected president of the National Union of Students, Black Students Conference. There she is the president. So leader with these type of viewpoints. And the thing is that we're now starting to witness that it's gotten so extreme and it's never enough. People can never be offended. And once you allow them to correct your speech even just a little bit, it's the whole give them an inch, they take a mile. So they're going to continue pushing on. And now we're seeing the political insanity of the left actually eating their own, fighting against their own. Hillary Clinton was criticized last week for not responding to trans-focused questionnaire that was sent to her by Trans United. It's a political action committee pushing transgender political issues, most notably the bathroom legislation. They said, you know, Bernie Sanders, good job. He was praised because he completed the questionnaire. But then meanwhile, he was interrupted. The Secret Service actually had to storm the stage and protect him because 5 activists from Direct Action Everywhere, which is a radical animal rights organization, rushed the stage. And they said, you know, he's really progressive. He promotes himself, progressivism and rejecting discrimination and inequality. But when it comes to the animals in the U.S. and around the world, discrimination and violence is the name of the game every single day. He claims to be progressive, but you can't be progressive if you oppose animal rights. And so that's what they're saying. You're progressive, but it's not enough. You have to do even more. And so once again, they storm the stage. Now, we remember what happened last time we had some activists storm the stage there. Bernie just stood back. And then, of course, he made his entire platform against the issues that these young radical activists are really pushing for. And so they are wanting him to recognize radical activism as a means to get things done. So this right there is, of course, very scary. Now, one of the things that you're hearing at a lot of these anti-Trump protests and everything is just the racism. Trump is so racist and he's sexist, xenophobic and everything. And how dare he want to vet refugees coming in from these countries where we don't know if they are potential terrorists or not. Well, is it racist to close our borders or vet people that could be carrying a contagious, infectious disease? This is something that the country has always done. You can't come into this country if you're carrying an infectious disease. But now they are reporting that a disfiguring tropical disease is sweeping across the Middle East. This is cutaneous leishmaniasis. It's transmitted through bites from sandflies and it can result in horrible open sores as well as disfiguring skin lesions, nodules, or papules if left untreated. So it gets in your bloodstream, and of course, it can be transmitted from person to person via coughing, blood transfusions, of course, bodily fluids. So this is something that's really affecting these regions that are fleeing their countries and into Europe, but that's racist. I'm not supposed to say that. We should be just like Germany, who is experiencing 18 women allegedly sexually assaulted at a music festival this weekend. And they were able to catch 3 asylum seekers from Pakistan, aged between 28 and 31, because they were able to quickly intervene. However, they say there could be more people who took part in these attacks because, as we've seen, what they do is they surround women by a huge group of men, and then they sexually assault them when they're in these large groups. Or we could be like Sweden, who is now toying with the idea of creating women-only swimming pools to deal with their rising immigrant population there. They want to be accommodating to them and have women-only swimming pools because women and men are not allowed to fraternize. I guess it could keep the raping down, but that's how it is. It's like no assimilation from on their part. It's the entire country has to assimilate to their way of living, and a very aggressive way of living, if you ask me. And we also are getting a moral response from the Dalai Lama, right? And you would think the Dalai Lama would say, you know, look into the face of every single refugee, see the children and the women, and you can feel their suffering. And it's the duty of a human being who is more fortunate to help them. But check this out. The Dalai Lama says, even on the other hand, there are too many now. Europe, for example, Germany cannot become an Arab country. Germany is Germany. There are so many that in practice it becomes difficult. From a moral point of view, I think that the refugees should only be admitted temporarily. The goal should be that they return and help rebuild their countries. So this is the Dalai Lama. He's dedicated his entire existence to enlightened thinking. And this is coming from him, someone who, you know, dedicates himself to helping the less fortunate out there. Even he can see the writing on the wall. So what is the madness that we are doing with just importing people willy-nilly and calling people racist if they want to vet them for being a potential terrorist or carrier of an infectious, disfiguring disease, I might add. So this is, of course, something that Trump has been at war with a lot of people here in this country and elsewhere, but he's also now at war with the press, who he's been having to push back against them calling him racist, sexist, homophobic, even though he never made those comments. But now they're also calling him out saying, hey, what did you do with all of those, that $6 million you said you raised for veterans? As you recall, he had that rally there for veterans rather than doing the debate. Well, here's how he responded to a reporter's question.
I'm not looking for credit, but what I don't want is when I raise millions of dollars, have people say, like this sleazy guy right over here from ABC. He's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well. Go ahead.
So he calls this guy sleazy because he's calling out the media saying, I see how you guys work, I know how you operate, and I'm going to cut you down if you try and roll this out. So he is sitting there explaining, I've sent $1 million here, $100,000 there. That they had to vet these groups because you can't just have a charity going, hey, we're a veterans charity, give us $100,000. And so he's sitting there naming off all the charities, and he said up to now, we've given $5.6 million. And then the reporter responds and lambasts him. And so he's like, dude, you're totally sleazy. And so he says, you know, I think the political press is among the most dishonest I've ever seen. And I have to tell you that because I think the political press, I see the stories and the way they're couched. And then the press asked him, is this the way you're going to treat us when you're president? And he said, yeah, it is. So I think we can see a lot more of the establishment media fighting against the Trump presidency, but we're going to also see a lot of pushback. Meanwhile, you know, what has Hillary Clinton's foundation done for Haiti? There's still 80-something thousand people living in tents. Meanwhile, her foundation has been able to build a really nice resort and a nice new Marriott hotel and things like that, while all the Haitians that they raised billions of dollars are still homeless 4 or 5 years later. They have no jobs. So it's absolutely ridiculous. But meanwhile, let's lambast Trump, who actually has donated nearly $6 million to veterans groups, and say, well, he didn't do it quick enough or transparent enough. Why don't you demand some transparency from the Clinton Foundation, and then we'll talk. Now, stick around, because coming up, I'm going to have Margaret Howell in studio for the News Blitz, and then David Knight will be joining me to break down the craziness in the Libertarian Party.
Get BrainForce at 25% off for a limited time at InfoWarsLife.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of BrainForce.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash afterwards. And the cool thing about this is it's not just a bunch of energy compounds that are gonna fire your brain up to a higher RPM or whatever, which it does do. This is sustainable. This isn't going to spike and you're gonna collapse and you're gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We're looking at the television screen for research purposes, whatever we're even doing, trying to learn something, or staring at the computer all day, working, doing good. You're still damaging your brain.
You will find BrainForce and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Get BrainForce at 25% off for a limited time at InfoWarsLife.com. And we thank you for your support.